Hello, everyone, and welcome. We're going to get started soon. If you want to find your seats, grab some snacks. I'm going to do a little bit of housekeeping first. We were just checking the volume for the mic. Cool. So for the housekeeping, please feel free to move forward and fill up the seats up here. And there's a lot of us here, so we want to make sure that you have bathroom access. There's bathrooms just over here, and there's additional bathrooms downstairs. There are the most accessible bathrooms here, and there's additional overflow bathrooms downstairs. I'm going to get started with introductions. I'm Serena Purdy with Friends of Kensington Market. And I also want to thank our community partners. We're here, we organized this with the Baldwin Village Community Association, and I really want to thank George, who did an incredible job getting all of these candidates together, and the Grange Community Association, the Cawthra Mansions Co-op, the University of Toronto Students' Union. And we are very excited to be having this conversation today. I'm going to say a land acknowledgement, but as we should all know at this point, these words must be accompanied by thoughts, learning, and action. So I will also, after reading the land acknowledgement for Cecil Community Center, give shout out to some of the local organizations that operate in this community that are doing incredible work that I hope you learn more about and support. Cecil Community Center, this building, which I've been proud to be on the board of as well, acknowledges that the sacred land on which this building stands has been the site of human activity for 15,000 years. This land is the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishnabeg, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples, and is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit and Métis. We also acknowledge that Toronto is covered by Treaty 13, signed with the Mississaugas of the Credit, and the Williams Treaties, signed with multiple Mississaugas and Chippewa lands. Today, the meeting place of Toronto is still home to many Indigenous people from across Turtle Island, and we are grateful to have the opportunity to work in the community on this territory. We are also mindful of broken covenants and the need to strive to make right with all our relations. The original nations continue to cry out for justice. As treaty people, we commit to listen, learn, and work towards justice and reconciliation. The organizations that I wanted to give a shout out to that work in this community and do incredible work include Indigenous Harm Reduction, Red Pepper Spectacle Arts, and Anishnabeg Health. Indigenous Harm Reduction does some incredible work, specifically empowering urban Indigenous folks. And Red Pepper Spectacle Arts, close to my heart, in Kensington Market, works with First Nations, Inuit and Métis artists. And Anishnabeg Health has done some incredible work through this pandemic, including having a mobile health unit to make sure that we reach some of our most vulnerable neighbors. We usually do something, it's an exercise in intention setting, and it's an exercise in community agreement to set the tone for events like this. Friends of Kensington Market does this before our AGMs and before our community engagements. So this is a modified version for the event tonight. Today we are meeting to exercise our democratic rights. We, the voters, need to know where you, the candidates, stand on issues that affect our lives. You, the candidates, need our votes. But we hope you actually care. What does it mean to exercise our democratic rights? It means the ability to make informed decisions about candidates based on true, honest, and factual disclosure from candidates. It also means safety and access to public forums for the purpose of informing our vote. We'll also commit to following up on this event. This event is being live streamed, and there will be a video publicly available so that people can circulate it among the community if they were unable to attend. And the candidate responses to the questions, if you so choose to respond to them in writing, will be circulated to our membership as well as members of the press. We will also be providing some fact-checking for the candidates' claims, and that will be made available on our social media, Facebook and Instagram. The community agreement. Part of the reason that we are hosting this event today is because we have some of the lowest voter turnout. There was a spacing map that was released recently that showed pretty low numbers for our neighborhood. And I think it's important for us to be able to engage more fulsomely in this discussion. We don't think that it's accidental that we have such low voter turnout, that there are systems and leaders in place that have either failed to enfranchise or actively work to disenfranchise large portions of our population. This meeting is an effort towards inclusion, and I hope all this content can be kept in mind as we take this matters into public hands today and participate in the democratic process. We really look forward to hearing what you see as you, both candidates and community, as the most urgent areas to address, big and small, so that we build a better, accountable, elected leadership. We recognize that elected representation often raises emotions and personal experiences for many. That being said, we want to ensure today's discussion is as open and accessible as possible. And we want to do so by practicing an ethic of compassion, by maintaining a harassment-free, no bullying, no domination conversation environment. That means for the candidates, no cutting people off, respecting your time limit. We are all here as a community to hear what you have to say. And if you run over your time, you're interrupting our ability to hear what the other candidates have to say. No active scientific or economic disinformation. So examples of that include pandemic denial or denial of the housing crisis. We understand that people may be genuinely misinformed or have diverse views, but active disinformation is the intentional spreading of false information with the intention to mislead. Disinformation impairs democratic decision-making and derails conversation. It also means no white supremacist, sexist, or ableist speech. All of these are unsafe, so they're not appreciated in discussion about democracy, inclusion, and justice. And it also means recognizing experiences in the room, that there are some of our neighbors that have experienced police violence, sexual harassment, and forms of discrimination. These are not ideological or philosophical debates. These are not up for discussion. And that is because many of us who have experienced it, it's actually connected to traumas and experiences in our everyday lives. So thank you. Sorry for the long-winded preamble, but we'll be calling up each of the candidates. We'll be going around the room essentially this way. And we've got a timer. Where's Matt? Matt's over here. For the candidates, if you take a look at Matt, she's going to give you a 5-minute heads up once the timer started. She's going to give you a 2-minute heads up, and she's going to let me know when your time is done. And I'm going to try to front load some of the questions that are really easy yes/nos at the beginning so we can get those out of the way. But we'll try to get through as many of the preset questions from our community as possible. And then afterwards, everyone will be able to have a chance to speak directly to each of the candidates at their tables. So we're going to call up our first candidate. I think we're going to be starting with Diane. Thank you, Diane. If you could just introduce yourself at the beginning, and then we'll hop into the questions. There you go. Whatever you prefer.
Is it okay to pick it up? Yes.
You need to turn it on.
Okay. Yes, my name is Diane Sachs. I've knocked on most of your doors over the last 2 years. I'm running for council as a proud independent. My website is votefordIane.ca. And what else did you want me to talk about at this point?
Any introduction you want. Just let people know who you are, what you stand for.
Okay. Well, I think I stand out from the other candidates because of my experience and expertise, my character, and my long roots in this community. My family used to attend synagogue at this building a long time ago. We've got yeah, well, what can I tell you? We've got 120 years of roots in and around this ward. My mother was born here, I was born here, my kids were born here, my grandchildren were born here. I went to school here, I've worked here on Bay Street, Beverly Street, and Baptist Street. My synagogue's here, my community center is here, I went to swim here, I sing here, even my bicycle is from this ward. So this is my community. And if you want to know what people who know me really well think of my character, please check out the endorsements on my website, votefordIane.ca. You'll see endorsements from the volunteer work that I've done at the long-term care homes in this ward, and the professional work that I've done, and volunteer work on managing endowment, and so on and so forth. In terms of my experience, well, I've had a long career. And so I've had the privilege of running a small business for 25 years, a very successful small business. I've won all kinds of awards. I have been a public servant. I have led a multi-million-dollar government office. I've worked for and against developers, city governments, manufacturers, basically all sectors of the Canadian economy. And that has given me the opportunity to understand the needs and speak the language of people right across the community, which has really helped me in my work as a mediator, as a trained mediator for a number of years as well. And what I have found is that cities across Canada and communities, community organizations and businesses have hired me because I know how things work and I know how to get results, and that's what I want to do for you, for us.
Thank you. All right, so we're going to hop into the questions. The first one is, have you signed on to or will you sign on to the No Developer Money Pledge?
I don't think it's helpful to demonize any sector of the economy. As I say, I've worked for and against people in all sectors, and my experience has been there's good actors and there's bad actors in any sector, any group. What I do know that we've got these problems to deal with, and we'll only find solutions if we have everybody at the table. I also know that a lot of people, we don't want any particular group to be able to dictate what a council does at council. And I can promise you, nobody will get to dictate to me. I have always told truth to power. That's why Doug Ford had to pass special legislation to try to shut me up. And I will continue to do so and represent the best interests of the community to the best of my ability.
We have preset questions, but you can ask the candidates anything you want afterwards.
At the table, no.
Yeah. Once you go to the table, you can ask them any question you want, but we have preset questions. She's going to be right over there. Next question is, do you think the city has a role in supporting harm reduction organizations in addressing homelessness in encampments? If so, what role do you think that is? And expanding on that, you can respond to any or all of this if you prefer, but will you commit to working with the homeless and underhoused themselves, stopping encampment evictions, not spending public funding on private security, or restoring funding for shelters?
This is a high country, and there's so forth.
You covered a lot of ground in that question. I do, excuse me, I'm trying to answer the question I've been asking. I do. There's always somebody. I do think that the city has a significant role to play in dealing with the homeless. The city is not primarily responsible for the problem. That's primarily the responsibility of the provincial government with its incredibly low support for ODSP, low rates for Ontario Works, inadequate funding in mental health, inadequate funding for addiction, inadequate funding for housing. There's a lot of things that the province has downloaded on the city without resources. But the city has a role, and I want to see the city doing more of the things that it can do. For example, when my family first came to Toronto, they lived in rooming houses. Rooming houses were the only thing they could afford. Rooming houses have always provided a step up, a way in for people who don't have much money. And the city needs to legalize and regulate rooming houses across Toronto so that we can have a lot more low-cost housing that's well regulated. And as you saw, City Council this spring again adopted and didn't do it. So that's one thing we need to do. We need to have deeply affordable housing that stays affordable, and that's not possible from the private market. It's only possible if there's some form of subsidy. Where can those subsidies come from? Well, one thing, Environmental Defense made a really good suggestion that we should have special density bonuses available only to nonprofit providers of permanently affordable housing. That makes a lot of sense. We know that inclusionary zoning can provide some kind of help. We know that use of public land can also help bring costs down. There's also some really interesting innovations these days in good quality modular housing that can be built less expensively and more quickly. So we need to have more housing. We also need to have more support services. I've been interested in learning about the St. Clair organization and the way they provide supportive housing, where they provide the housing, they get charitable funding for a lot of the capital grants, they pay their mortgage out of the rents, and they partner with support organizations so that people get support services they need. We're going to need all those kinds of models. There's no single one-size-fits-all answer. We're going to need all of them. But there's good evidence that people who have been homeless, given a chance, can very often put their lives back together and have good lives, and that's what I'd like to see. And we'll be looking for.
Thank you. The next question is, will you commit to making the Kensington Market Heritage Conservation designation a priority, directing staff to complete it in the first quarter?
Well, that is such an infuriating story. I assume that most of you know this story. Okay, so I'm glad you found it. So in 2015, 7.5 years ago, the City of Toronto Council passed a resolution that it was a priority to get the Kensington Heritage Conservation designation and plan in place. And it is now 2022, 7.5 years later, and it hasn't happened. So this is really a telling example of the problems that we have right across the city. The city is constantly making promises that it doesn't keep. Now, it's worse now than ever before because of the pandemic. Right? I think you all know the city took an enormous financial hit during the pandemic and is still taking a big financial hit. And as the city manager said to council really, really clearly over and over again, the city does not have the ability, the resources to deliver all the things that they've promised. Simple as that. So either we see the city decline and more things falling apart, or the city has to find a way to get the resources to do more of the things that we, the people, want them to do. The Heritage Conservation Plan, I hope, is pretty close. I mean, it's close to ours. My campaign manager, Patrick Morrison, I don't know how many of you know him, he was the paid staffer at the Kensington Business Improvement Association who did all the work to put together the application and the paperwork, and has his heart deeply involved in this. So yes, we really care about this one. And it may be that most of the work is done. I mean, the city's been very quiet about it since 2019. There's been a couple of meetings, that's it. So once, after the election, assuming I'm elected, I'll be meeting with staff and say, okay, what's left on this one? Because if it's close, then I hope we can get it done and get it done right and get it done fast. But we're going to have to be realistic about all the priorities the city has and the fact that we've got more priorities than we can deliver. And we're going to have some hard discussions about what we can do and what we can't and what we can do. And how we pay for what we need.
Thank you. The next question is, will you commit to making Kensington Market Cultural District designation a priority, directing staff to complete it immediately following the implementation of CDDs?
So this idea of a cultural conservation a plan is a really interesting one. It's never been done in the city of Toronto. The city did do some work last year looking at cultural districts. But again, there's so many priorities, and the first priority for Kensington is to get the heritage designation done. I think it's also really important that we pay more attention to the other plans the city does. One of the problems that the city has, and the provincial government had the same, is we have things being done in different silos. So we have the one group talking about, okay, we're in the heritage conservation, and you've got another group doing the traffic plan, and they're proposing to still have way too much street parking for non-residents in Kensington, and that doesn't match with the heritage conservation. So we need to have better coordination of the different city silos. It's the same problem I dealt with when I was commissioner, when I had overseen 17 government departments that didn't talk to each other. And very often there's a need for someone to be able to hold hands between the different departments and try to get a conversation done so that hopefully we can solve problems.
The next question is, do you commit to ensuring that development on city-owned land is in partnership with nonprofits?
As I mentioned, development of city-owned land in partnership with nonprofits is one of the ways that's available to the city without putting its hand in its pocket to get deeply affordable housing that can stay affordable over time. But we also have this competing need. So I mentioned the deep financial hole that the city is in, and the city isn't allowed to just run a deficit the way the provincial government does. So one of the things that the city is actively doing right now is selling properties that it doesn't urgently need for top dollar so that we don't have to cut other services. So this is really the choice we're in. Do we cut other services or do we sell these properties to make money to keep the lights on? We're not going to be able to do all of everything. I am going to try my best to do some of each, some raising of money just so we can have other services, but using some of the city-owned properties that the city doesn't require so that we do get more housing. We have so many needs, not just one, and it's going to have to be a site-by-site basis. I wish there was a magic wand. I've been looking for one ever since I was commissioned. Somebody gave me a little a wooden spoon painted blue. That's the closest I ever got.
Next question, will you commit to working towards getting the city to use its available powers and resources to take a lead in protecting tenants from rent evictions, challenge the province of Ontario on laws that incentivize the eviction of tenants, and double its investment in the multi-unit residential acquisition program?
Well, I am absolutely happy to keep challenging Doug Ford on his terrible policies. I've been doing that for years and I will continue to do it. Certainly, rent control in Ontario right now is designed to give landlords a strong financial incentive to evict long-standing tenants, because then they can jack the rent up as much as they want. And that's why we're seeing such pressure on tenants, such harassment of tenants and so much rent evictions. The city can't stop that. That's entirely in the province's hands. What the city can do, and should do more of, is working with tenants so they understand their rights and are better able to exercise them. I mean, we also, of course, need the province to staff the landlord and tenant board so people can get their hearings. But one of the things, again, that I did as environmental commissioner of Ontario is one of my jobs was to help people understand their environmental rights and to know how to exercise them. And the city can do that and should do that, and that will help a little.
Will you fully commit to supporting the climate emergency motion passed by the city, Toronto City Council in October 2019?
Well, absolutely. I mean, I'm a climate champion. I've been a climate and environmental champion my whole career. Some of you may know Mike Layton and several of the other councillors approached me in 2020 and asked me to set up a committee of experts to advise the councillors on exactly this, how to implement Transform TO, how to get serious about the climate, because they didn't know what to do. And so they came to me and I set up a committee of experts from the 4 universities, and we did provide advice to City Council, and I will absolutely continue to champion this. Climate is going to dominate our lives, especially for all the young people here. It is going to dominate the rest of our lives, and it's an overwhelming threat, but it's also an enormous opportunity. There's trillions of dollars around the world looking to invest in a new climate economy. There's brilliant innovators in Toronto. Some of you have heard my podcast, Green Economy Heroes, where I interview green business leaders and all the amazing things that they're doing in different communities from different backgrounds. We can make this part of our success going forward, because there isn't going to be any success without it.
Thank you. The next question is, will you fully support funding and staffing for Transform TO to ensure that we meet our climate goals for 2025 and 2030?
Yes, absolutely, 100% yes. We have to have it, we need it. It's going to cost us so much more if we don't. I mean, you've already seen the news this week, right? The hurricanes. We have so much damage occurring all around the world. We've seen food prices go up. Anybody notice food prices going up? Yes, you noticed? Okay, well, the war in Ukraine is certainly part of it, but climate change is a big part of it. It makes it harder to grow food in more and more places. It's going to keep biting us in the behinds. We're going to see insurance get more and more expensive. So many things are going to be affected, are already getting affected. And we have to do our bit. And also we need our infrastructure to be able to withstand the hammer blows that are coming.
Thank you. Okay, thanks. That's your time.
All right.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for the questions. Thank you for your attention. Thank you everybody who came. Really appreciate it.
If we can get our next candidate up, as we're going around the room this way. Is it you? Oh, are you up? Come on up. Come on up. You'll have a chance to introduce yourself briefly, and then we'll hop into questions. You have 15 minutes to speak. 10 minutes. Oh, you want to, well.
We will never have time. You gotta make it 10 minutes.
I think we'll be fine. But just keep an eye on Matt over here. She'll give you a 5-minute and a 2-minute warning. And then it's all over.
All right, good evening. Thank you for having me and listening to my ideas. My name is Pierre Terrien. I am a retired authorized nuclear operator. I worked at the Darlington nuclear power plant for, well, I was licensed there for the last 15 years. I retired, 15 years before I retired. And then I retired 3 years ago, and since then I've been traveling around. I spent a year in Vancouver, and I spent a better part of a year in Sicily, and then we came back here, my wife and I, in December. And the primary reason why I come here is to, well, it's sad to say, but our nuclear facilities are underfunded. And I want to bring this idea up to the provincial legislature, and I want to bring some attention to this matter. That's one of my primary ideas. And then I have an idea to solve climate change. This problem is not nearly as big as we make it. So the simple fact is that we can control this. We are currently being victims of this climate emergency, and we're allowing it to spiral up and out of control. Bob Dole pointed out that the atmospheric CO2 concentration is rising extremely rapidly, and this is clearly an existential threat. So we're dumping the CO2 into the atmosphere, and all it comes down to is that for every ton of CO2 the emitters produce from fossil fuels or cement production, we can force them to remove 2. The removal cost for CO2 from the atmosphere has fallen all the way down to $25 a ton. If we force the emitters to pay for 2 tons for every ton they emit, it will result in $50 per ton, and that results in about 50 cents per gallon of gasoline. This is well within our capability to afford. All we have to do is legislate, and that's my intention. That's one of the largest reasons why I'm here, is that I want to legislate that people who dump CO2 into the atmosphere, they will be forced to remove twice as much. So, and then I call it the 142 plus the rebate, because the rebate that we currently have, the government of Canada has the carbon tax rebate, making this a tax on the rich. And so this rebate, it essentially removes all the costs from the poor. And so I call it 142 plus R. It's for every ton you emit, you will remove 2, and you will pay the rebate as well. So that's my climate change idea. I have
Sorry, just quickly, we're going to do questions.
okay.
After the introduction, we're going to go into actual questions so that you can respond to what the community's identified as priority.
Okay, so
Cool.
you just want me to introduce myself?
Just the intro, yeah.
Okay, well, that's about it.
Yeah, all right. And then we can get into specific questions, and you can tell people more at your table when we're done here. So the first question is, have you signed on to, or will you sign on to, the No Developer Money Pledge?
Will I sign on to the, what about?
No Developer Money Pledge. It's a pledge to not receive donations from developers.
Okay, absolutely.
Okay. The next question is, do you think the city has a role in supporting harm reduction organizations and addressing homelessness in encampments? And if so, what? Will you commit to working with the homeless and underhoused themselves, stopping encampment evictions, not spending public funding on private security, or restoring funding for shelters?
Yes, so the homelessness situation in Toronto and pretty much in every major city in Canada is the same. It's pathetic. There is, from what I can tell in government, there is a complete lack of vision to simply solve this problem. We need to act like Finland did and treat this as a technocratic matter. And we need to think of a system that's going to house all the homeless people and bring them out of this. They cannot, there's far too much mental health issues. These people have no address. There's no way to lift themselves out of this. I think it's a conservative agenda to cause people to, you're supposed to learn through hard lessons, and it's not working. And that's my opinion. I am liberal-minded, and so I think we have to take care of these people. I think we have to get all of these people out off of the street. Finland did it, and so can we. Utah has done it, and the people down at Youth Without Shelter have a clear picture of how to deal with these issues and solve these problems, but they simply are completely underfunded. They have, I think it's a total of less than 100 beds, and they need 1,000 immediately. It's, so anyways, the carbon tax is a tax on the rich, and so I say that since the carbon tax is a tax on the rich should pay for this problem. I say load her up. I think that we should take the carbon tax and we should increase it until it meets the demands of the homeless problem.
The next question is, will you commit to working towards getting the city to use its available powers and resources to take the lead in protecting tenants from rent evictions, challenge the province of Ontario on laws that incentivize the eviction of tenants, and double its investment in a multi-unit residential acquisition program?
Yes, I think that rental evictions, I think we have to create some new laws to stop this from happening. Developers can't be They're tearing down whole apartment buildings, and people have to go and find their own apartment and move themselves. I think it's outrageous. I think that if the developers developers make an enormous amount of money from building apartment buildings, condos and apartment building rentals. They make enormous amounts of money. They can pay. They can pay to, if buildings have been properly assessed and it's decided that they should be torn down, then all right, but I don't like to see functioning apartment buildings torn down when there's other spaces to build up as well. So anyways, yes.
The next question, do you commit to ensuring that development on city-owned land is in partnership with nonprofits?
So
Development on city-owned land is in partnership with nonprofits.
Yeah.
Will you commit to making the Kensington Market Heritage Conservation designation a priority, directing staff to complete it in the first quarter?
I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
The Heritage Conservation designation, will you commit to making the Kensington Market Heritage Conservation designation a priority, directing staff to complete it in the first quarter?
I think that the Kensington Market issue, I think it has to be a longer term issue. There's, I think that the designation, I think is correct. I think that that needs to be turned into a pedestrian zone. I think that from what I've seen going up and down the streets there, the area is a pedestrian zone, and it's a wonder that people aren't run over by cars all the time. I think that where cars are required to enter, then they can, but I think that we should keep cars out of there. I think that the streets need to be turned into, well, similar to down by Queen's Quay, refined and finished and something pleasant.
Will you commit to making the Kensington Market Cultural District designation a priority, directing staff to complete it immediately following the implementation of CDDs?
The implementation of,
Cultural District designation, which is separate from Heritage Conservation designation.
yeah.
Do you know much about that process, or?
I haven't looked into this cultural designation for Kensington Market, no. So, but I think that that sounds appropriate, a cultural designation for Kensington Market, yes.
Will you fully commit to supporting the climate emergency motion passed by Toronto City Council in October 2019?
Is there any way I could get you to remove your mask?
So we are working to make sure that everyone's safe here. So will you fully commit to supporting the climate emergency motion passed by Toronto City Council in October 2019?
Absolutely not. That the current plans that we have in place to deal with this climate crisis are completely inadequate. Before we start building solar cells and windmills, we need to remove the idea of pollution from our society. The idea that people can simply treat the atmosphere as a garbage can is the problem. We just simply have to stop pollution. And if I'm elected, I can assure you that I will change the story on this entire issue.
Okay. Thank you very much for your time. That's your time up. For the next candidate, if you can come up and introduce yourself briefly before we hop into questions. Just 1 second while we sanitize the mic. Yeah, okay. Just keep an eye on that. She'll give you a 5-minute and a 2-minute when you're getting close to the end of your time.
All candidates will be on 10 minutes. If they don't want something to go last.
Yeah. All right, so we're moving to 10 minutes just so we can make sure we get through everybody. And apologies to the candidates that are having slightly less time, but I hope that you'll be able to make it up by speaking to people individually at your table afterwards. Go ahead.
Hello, my name is Peter Baldwin. I live in the ward, and I've lived in Toronto for all my life. I came to the decision to run for city council quite a while ago, but I never knew when to do it. I watched it for probably 3 elections. I kept standing by the sidelines. I helped several campaigns along the way. I spent a year working in city council for an interim councillor, an appointee, if you will. Loved it. And as I was watching this election unfold, as I was watching it sort of people coming onto the register and signing up and being nominated, I was watching and waiting for somebody that was going to say what I thought needed to be said as it pertains to the city and city councilors. And nobody did. So I decided, I was helping a couple other people with their campaigns outside of Toronto, and I decided that what we really need are city councilors to do the little things. The city has lost its curb appeal, in my opinion. I've heard it in hockey rinks, I've heard it in backyards, and I've heard it at the doorstep. People are frustrated with city services. Now, a little bit about me. I came from a graphic design background. I had my own graphic design business. I published something called Parliament Street News in downtown Toronto. That's where I really got my interest, talking to retailers every day, talking to community people, following the politics, and literally delivering papers to everybody's door. And in doing that, you get a sense for the vibe and the feel. If you go to my website at votelovering.com, right across the top, I have something that says, Believe in Toronto. And for me, Believe in Toronto was very much an overriding theme of the campaign. And it's not one of divisiveness or agendas or anything like that. It's really quite simply to create a renewed hope and believing in Toronto. And how do we do that? Well, we do it by doing the little things, fixing the little things and doing what the councillors were meant to do in the first place. Granted, there's big issues out there. I agree. But there's also a lot of little things within the boundaries and within the scope of a city councilor's ability to get done every day and beat yesterday and improve things on a day in, day out basis. And only then, when we fix those things and we start feeling better about ourselves and feeling better about the city and believing in Toronto, can we really start tackling the bigger issues. That's how I got here, and that's why I am here.
Thank you. The first question is, have you signed on to, or will you sign on to, the No Developer Money Pledge?
I'm running a very affordable campaign, so I don't need developer money, so yes.
Do you think the city has a role in supporting harm reduction organizations and addressing homelessness in encampments? And if so, what? Would you commit to working with the homeless and underhoused themselves, stopping encampment evictions, not spending public funding on private security, or restoring funding for shelters?
I think all of those things are important, and I think we have to commit to solving the homeless problem. It is a big problem, but it is also helping one person a day, getting them out of their situations and focusing on youth and focusing on helping them in every way, shape, and form. So yes, but it is also a much bigger picture that also is an upstream issue with the rest of the province. The rest of the province should be contributing to the homeless problem so it doesn't become a downstream problem like it is in Toronto right now.
Will you challenging the province of Ontario on laws that incentivize the eviction of tenants and double its investment in the multi-unit residential acquisition program?
Yes.
All right, do you want to expand on that, or just?
No, I think, I'm a renter. I know what it's like to be, like during the pandemic, literally, my lease got called up and I ended up moving. I had an opportunity to move, very luckily at that time, but I know that we're all no matter how secure you may feel in your job, things change from day to day, whether it's personal health, relationships, career, and yeah, having a little security in the rental world is incredibly important.
Do you commit to ensuring that development on city-owned land is in partnership with nonprofits?
Yes, absolutely. I think that's an incredibly sensible way to do it, as we've seen a lot of places in Dixon Hall and certainly down in Cawthra, those types of organizations who are really doing a great job, and I think we can do more of that for the city.
Will you commit to making the Kensington Market Heritage Conservation designation a priority, directing staff to complete it in the first quarter?
Yes. If the staff has done the work, they can't do it. One of my things, one of the things I'm talking about is safer, cleaner, and more efficient. One of the inefficiencies is that our city staff are not executing on their core business and what they're meant to be doing. So I would commit to that, but I don't know how far along the process they are in it, to be fair.
Will you commit to making the Kensington Market Cultural District designation a priority, directing staff to complete it immediately following the implementation of CBDs?
Yes, I think Toronto is very much a city of neighborhoods, and the cultural component of these neighborhoods has to be fostered and protected, just like the neighborhoods themselves.
Will you fully commit to supporting the climate emergency motion passed by the City of Toronto, Toronto City Council in October 2019?
I will not fully commit to that, but I am committed to it, if that makes sense. I think they've gone, and I think moving the program, how should I say, if that program means that Toronto Hydro, which it does, and if there's a link in the whole program that says Toronto Hydro can't reach those targets without changing the infrastructure to raise the price of electricity from about 5 times, and about $15 billion to meet those requirements. That becomes hard on the people that can't afford it. And we have to balance, thank you, we have to balance these environmental decisions. Yes, we have to do everything we can to get to those targets. But if that means that people cannot afford to heat their houses, or the grid is falling apart, then I think we have to use a sensible approach and be aware of that and address it accordingly.
Will you fully support funding and staffing for Transform TO to ensure we meet our climate goals for 2025 and 2030?
I would say that's about the same answer. Thank you.
Will you champion a green economy based on equity and inclusion for all of our communities?
Yes.
Thank you so much. Those are all of our questions, unless there's anything else you'd like to add.
Well, I just hope you have a chance to come and visit me. Thank you for your time. Thank you for showing up. I appreciate everybody being here. And please come and see me. And if you want to get some literature, give me a call and visit my website. I would look forward to talking to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. If we can get our next candidate, please. just take a moment to introduce yourself first, and then we'll hop into. You can take the mic off if you need to.
I prefer this, but can you
Okay.
hear me? No.
No, it might be easier just to get the mic closer to your face.
Okay. Hello, everyone. Please bear with me. I'm not quite the greatest at public speaking, but I wanted to thank you for inviting me, and I'm grateful for the opportunity to meet my fellow candidates and for the passionate constituents in this ward. I know that I'm new to many of you, so I'll start by introducing myself. I've lived in Toronto for most of my life. I grew up in the neighborhood, and I went to school around the corner on Beverly Street. I learned how to swim at the neighborhood pools and spent endless hours reading in the library. Many of these formative memories I carry with me and have driven me to run in this cycle. I cherish these experiences I had in this neighborhood and want to continue to work to build Toronto to its potential. I come into this election with 3 goals in mind: affordability, livability, and community. When talking about affordability, our minds turn to housing. Owning a home has become an out-of-reach dream for many in our community. I want to bring about new discussions and approaches to tackle this issue. We need to have a vision where our communities remain diverse in both cultural and socio-economic senses. So with this in mind, as councillor, I would want to look to affordable housing schemes that have been implemented elsewhere with success and create a model that works for Toronto. Livability speaks to how we build our neighborhoods for those who are here now and those who will live here in the future. We need to consider sustainability in Toronto's development with respect to climate change, and I know we'll get to those questions soon. We will continue to see more intense storms, extremes in temperatures, droughts, and floods, even with the ambitious goals for our emissions targets. While we can be proud to have a council that has invested in this, we need to ensure that we are adaptable and focused on implementation. Livability is also our day-to-day lives, the way we get to school and work, and how we remove obstacles Torontonians might face. We should focus on improved transportation options, making infrastructure accessible, and ensuring safety. All of these things contribute to improved livability in the city. This leads to the last point: a future of vibrant Toronto with bustling neighborhoods and people that care for each other. We can create spaces for the communities, for neighbors to meet, and community organizations to flourish. This means investing in public areas, creating more space, and engagement and funding for the organizations. We need to support small businesses and enterprises that keep our streets thriving and diverse. I'm committed to making Toronto a city that is affordable, livable, and a community for its residents. Thank you for the time to hear me speak about this vision.
Thank you. Can you also say your name?
I'm sorry. I do this all the time. My name's Allison Ping, and I'm running, as a Ward 11 candidate.
Thank you. The details get lost sometimes. Okay, so we're going to hop into the questions, and you should know it's coming by now, but have you signed on to, or will you sign on to the No Developer Money Pledge?
Quite simply, yes, although, Peter, I am just, funded by myself, but of course, I think that in a thriving democracy, money that comes from sources that influence the decision-making at City Hall is something that takes away from individuals' power. So I will definitely be signing it.
Do you think the city has a role in supporting harm reduction organizations and addressing homelessness in encampments? If so, what? Will you commit to working with the homeless and underhoused themselves, stopping encampment evictions, not spending public funding on private security, or restoring funding for shelters?
I definitely think that the city should continue to fund programs for these sites, the harm reduction sites, harm reduction organizations, but in my mind I was thinking, near my house there's a community center that does safe injections. I think that we need to provide care and rehabilitation, and this speaks back to the community aspect. We should also look to understand the larger issues, be it the macroeconomic issues at hand, the impacts of our own policies, and like looking through these issues with the lens of justice and equity as well. I think that when we talk about these issues, we should think about it with compassion. I think that many of us are privileged to not have experienced homelessness, but we need to be aware that criminalizing and over-policing of people who are experiencing homelessness is not necessarily the way to go about it.
Will you commit to working towards getting the city to use its available powers and resources to take the lead in protecting tenants from rent evictions, challenge the province of Ontario on laws that incentivize the eviction of tenants, and double its investment in the multi-unit residential acquisition program?
I think I'll address the last point first. I think that in terms of a monetary, a number attached to this program, I think it's a great program, the multi-unit residential acquisition program. But I think that the issue of housing should be approached holistically and with a multi-pronged solution. Acquisition is one method. The city should work with organizations to create communities, and I think this is my transformative approach, but big legacy-making projects. I think neighborhoods are at their best when there is diversity, so creating neighborhoods of shared ownership programs, affordable housing, cooperatives. There are a lot of models that we can follow. Nordic countries are always ones that we're compared to, but I think what's really important is that we should focus on the financialization, stopping the financialization of housing in Toronto. There are examples across the world of big corporations buying up housing because there is profit in it. And we need to talk about how we can prevent these conglomerates from buying out affordable housing units, doing the rent evictions, and how to protect our communities from these corporate actors.
Do you commit to ensuring that development on city-owned land is in partnership with nonprofits?
I think when we talk about development, again, I think I put a housing sort of lens on it, but I think that the community should be at the center of every discussion. Nonprofits may speak for the community, but they may also speak for special interests, and often there are marginalized communities that do not participate readily in the consultation process. So if elected, I'm committed to conducting consultation that is inclusive in partnership with nonprofit organizations, but as well as individual actors or the citizens, or sorry, the residents of the community.
Will you commit to making the Kensington Market Heritage Conservation designation a priority, directing staff to complete it in the first quarter?
I think the Kensington Market HCD is a fantastic way to preserve the character of the market. What I'm hung up on a little bit is the first quarter part. I don't want to promise anything that I can't deliver on, so I would say it would be a priority for me. Kensington Market is incredible and distinct neighborhood, and the work of its community members in the past 10, 15, 20 years has really shown the drive to keep Kensington Market in its sort of vibrancy and diversity. And I think that, yes, but not to the timeline. I can't predict the timeline.
Will you commit to making the Kensington Market Cultural District designation a priority, directing staff to complete it immediately following the implementation of CDD?
I think that Kensington Market would definitely be one of the prime candidates for the CBD. Again, supporting the culture and I don't know what word I want to use, but like the character of the neighborhood is incredibly important.
Will you fully commit to supporting the climate emergency motion passed by Toronto City Council in October of 2019?
Yes, I will, is a simple answer. Climate change is the biggest issue for this time, like for the, this is basically the biggest issue of our time. I think that if nothing is done to address it, we will be facing sort of the problem, we will see the problems borne out in the next few decades. And even with the intensity of storms that we have seen in the past 10 years, I think it highlights the importance of the issue.
Thank you.
Oh, is that okay?
That's your time. I think it's Adam next. We're going around this way. Yeah, we're going around this way.
Okay, so who doesn't have a hand up? I don't need a doctor's hand up.
We can do that afterwards. I think for now, just hop up and give yourself an introduction and we can get into the questions.
Keep your nose in the class that they get first before the lesson. Okay.
Don't forget to add your name.
Pleasure to meet you all. I haven't met you before. I was raised not to talk to strangers, but this is it. I got to talk to you all right now. I've lived in your neighborhood for quite some time. My name is Adam Golding. I was born at Mount Sinai Hospital, and I would have grown up here, but my father died when I was a year old from lung cancer. He was exposed to asbestos at Don Mills Collegiate. That's why we moved back to Barrie, where my mother grew up. Although my grandparents had also lived in Toronto. All my grandparents were born here except for my grandmother from Friesland, although she also ran a shop in Mississaugas selling clothing. And my grandfather drove the TTC and was a police officer before he became a civil servant at Base Borden, which is why I ended up living in Barrie when my mom's husband died, my father. And I moved back here for school and haven't left since. So I've been here for 20 years, first in the Annex and then in Kensington. And I started teaching piano as a teenager in Barrie, and I do that here today. If you ever seen posters for up here for anarchist piano lessons, those are secretly me. And send me any piano students so I don't win this election because I know I'll be another income stream. I don't have a family here yet, but I will start one if I win because then I'll be able to afford it because the affordability crisis is not so great and my wife can work on the music. She's working for Achievers right now downtown. And so I came to UT and I was a student union president at the Cognitive Science and Artificial Intelligence Students Association for 2 terms. And I also ran a lot of events there. I'm a cultural and event organizer. I organized concerts. I was organizing open mics at the Mix, which unfortunately was just closed because of rising rents. But you can see me late tonight at the Painted Lady every Monday, right at the corner of the Riding, playing piano. Tuesday nights at a new event I started at Kensington Brewing Co., 7 to 9, and Wednesday nights at Bam Pot House of Tea. You can ask me political questions there, you can ask me music theory questions, you can ask me literally any question at any of these events. So I hope I see you out in the Riding at cultural events, which is the most important form of organizing. They say that politics is downstream from culture, and that is the kind of campaign I've been running. I've been organizing events, and I would like you all to come to them and give me ideas for better events. I'm going to organize even a mayoral debate soon. Isabella's going to be attending, Phil in there in the corner will be attending, and Simon Nagel will be there. We'll see if Bill shows up. I'm not going to vote for Bill, but they're still here. It just shows you we're all getting along, some of those candidates. And so from student politics, I learned a lot about getting different groups to work together. In Cawthra, we had to get the linguists to talk to the philosophers, to talk to the computer scientists, to talk to psychologists, which is not easy, especially because they don't want to focus on their own thing. It's like trying to get a liberal to talk to a conservative. But anyway, I'm done. And out of student politics, I was recruited into the Pirate Party of Canada. The gentleman who recruited me, Sean Villiers, you can see him get his one media spot ever on Power and Politics. You can look him up on YouTube. And I still don't believe in intellectual property, although I do believe in personal property. I'm not a communist. I'm just a bit of a socialist. I believe in social programs. I'm an anti-authoritarian first, which is why I'm in this piano lesson. And so I lived in Toronto for some time, and after student politics, people always ask me, well, you can go into real politics? Of course, I say, what are you talking about? Student politics is everybody's real, it's not fiction. But if any, and I told them, well, geez, I'm going to take a break from politics, and I want to do cultural organizing. I worked on my music, I worked on developing a new genre called Free Prog. You can see videos of me and my drummer, and organizing, house parties, concerts, that kind of thing. And but I knew I would come back, I knew I had to apply what I learned in student politics. And one day, Donald Trump won an election, and I was like, the day before, I told myself, if he wins, I have to quadruple the amount of time I spend on politics. And I also have to quadruple the breadth of content that I consume, because they gave Hillary Clinton a 98% chance of victory. That's also why I'm ignoring the poll that has Diane in the lead, because Hillary was in the lead too. We'll see how it goes. But I knew that was disinformation, given what happened. And so even just from a truth perspective, in university, I also tutored formal logic and ended up teaching computer programming. I worked at Ryerson, back when it was called Ryerson, for the Music Psych Lab, and for a music software startup that was doing music algorithms.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but we do want to get through all of the...
Luckily, my answers to those questions are very short at the end.
Okay.
Don't worry, I read it design. I used to this from open banks.
Okay.
And the policy relevance is really good. I want to tell you how I ended up here before all of you today running for this position. And I want you to understand who will be around for 8 years at the election, because I think I'll win re-election if I get in. And so you want to know who you're really dealing with here. The redeployment of myself to politics happened after the Trump victory, and then John Tory did something which made me focus on this city, who sued Khalil Sebra for building tiny structures to save lives in our neighborhood. And I thought this was so pathological to punish people for helping publicly, corrosive to the psychology of any student you might have, any child you might have, who would say, oh, so if we try to help, we will be punished. And I knew that was wrong, and I could listen to Tory speaking gobbledygook on the TV about it. And so I knew I had to intervene, even just as a logician, because what he said didn't make a lot of sense. He said they're not safe. Well, not safe compared to what? He's leaving the important part implicit and not arguing the conclusion. So I was paying very close attention, and then I showed up at the encampment clearance. I was there at Alexandra Park in our neighborhood. I was there at Trinity Bellwoods, and I was there at Lamport. I was almost arrested at Trinity Bellwoods. I was assaulted at Alexandra, and I was arrested at Lamport Stadium and faced charges of obstructing the police, and I had to give a deposition to the Police Service Board. My charges were dropped. Some of those charges have not yet been dropped, but that is why the group Torch was founded, and that's why the Socialist Alliance was founded. And the Socialist Alliance has 3 candidates who were arrested on the same day. This is not a normal year in Toronto politics. Myself, Miguel, and Corey were all arrested the same day. We're all running on the Socialist Alliance platform. The platform I handed out to you is the platform I wrote. It is also approved by the Socialist Alliance. You'll see a few other policies on the Socialist Alliance platform. And with that, I think I should take some questions.
Yeah, I think you should definitely dive into some of the questions. Have you signed on to, or will you sign on to, the No Developer Money Pledge?
Yes, I've already taken any money, which is why you should donate to adamgolding.ca.
Do you think the city has a role in supporting harm reduction organizations in addressing homelessness in encampments, and if so, what? Will you commit to working with the homeless and underhoused themselves, stopping encampment evictions, not spending public funding on private security, or restoring funding for shelters?
Right, this is my only long answer, it won't be that long. We touched on both sides there. We need to defund the stick, but also fund the carrot. We can't simply say, oh, we're going to build housing, we're going to subsidy. We have to stop the authoritarianism. We have to fire Tracy Cook from the city manager's office. We can't have fellow police managing police, otherwise there is no one managing police. And we're spending money on gain control instead of spending money on basic needs. So there are good problems, what we're not spending on basic needs, and what we are spending on control. I was emailing Mike Layton, telling him to physically go down there and stop the clearings. He wouldn't do it, so I had to go down there myself. Even the cops told me to go down there because I called him on the phone. I said, human rights violations happening in real time. You can hear this all on the Evict John Tory playlist. I recorded all these calls, and they told me human rights violations are not an emergency. Well, I think they are, and I had to go there. So yes, physically, I will be there.
Will you commit to working towards getting the city to use its available powers and resources to take the lead in protecting tenants from rent evictions, challenge the province of Ontario on laws that incentivize the eviction of tenants, and double its investment in the multi-unit residential acquisition program?
Yes, yes, and yes. And on the second point, you'll see in my platform that I endorsed Jessica Bell's Rent Stabilization Act, which is something I wanted before she even gave that name proposal. We independently arrived at that conclusion.
Do you commit to ensuring that development on city-owned land is in partnership with nonprofits?
Yes, you want to be authoritarian and anti-authoritarian first, and the left is second. You don't say 100% have to be done that way, but let's say you reasonable the target of 50% of those developments should be in partnership with nonprofits.
Will you commit to making the Kensington Market Heritage Conservation designation a priority, directing staff to complete it in the first quarter?
Yes.
Will you commit to making the Kensington Market Cultural District designation a priority, directing staff to complete it immediately following the implementation of CDDs?
Yes.
Will you fully commit to supporting the climate emergency motion passed by Toronto City Council in October 2019?
Yes, and I will also listen to Peter's weird ideas at the same time.
Will you fully support funding and staffing of Transform TO to ensure that we meet our climate goals for 2025 and 2030?
Yes.
And will you champion a green economy based on equity and inclusion for all of our communities?
Absolutely.
All right. Those are all the questions. If there's anything more you'd like to add.
Okay. Pleasure to meet you all. We'll talk Adam Golden up there. Oh, you're going to applaud. Welcome to the concert. By the way, everybody learn the song. We get John Curry. This is a song to market a hashtag, to market a playlist, to market a crime committed by our mayor. So I don't think you're an informed voter who will watch the whole playlist. I know it's traumatic because I was there. But please watch it all before you vote. Watch the Evict John Tory playlist. Have a good night.
Thank you so much, Adam. Lauren, you're up. Just take a moment to introduce yourself and we'll hop into questions.
Hello, everyone. Oh, there we go. Okay, I'm on. Hello, everybody. My name is Ron Squally, and I'm running for City Councilor here in Ward 11, University of Rosedale. I got my start in municipal advocacy through being chair of No Jets TO, and built a coalition from all the way from Etobicoke to Scarborough to North York. Got tens of thousands of petitions signed, and together we all worked and we stopped the Jets. So from there, I got involved in some waterfront advocacy with Waterfront for All, and then helped to found Ontario Place for All, which is still fighting. So far, we've saved the Sinisphere, the pods, and Trillium Park, but there's more work to be done there to stop the private spa that's going to be built, which is going to take away a park that we have had here in Toronto for 50 years. This is supposed to be the cottage, the place for people who don't have a backyard. And unfortunately, Doug Ford is still threatening that. And on City Council, I will fight for Ontario Place. I will fight for our waterfront. I will fight for our public spaces. After that, I got elected school board trustee. I'm elected school board trustee here in University of Rosedale. And, I'm proud of the past 4 years. I governed during COVID, increased student and staff safety, pushed the equity bar up, I think, very high. I'm very proud of the past 4 years. We also built parquet over at Markham and Palmerston Square, which is so popular, it's going to need some upgrades with the next elected councillor here in Ward 11. So some results there for University of Rosedale. And then, then we came to this point where there was an opening became here in Ward 11 after the excellent work Councillor Mike Layton did here over the past 12 years. And he encouraged me to run, and I stand here before you today. It's an honor to have earned the endorsement of the Toronto Labour Council, Progress Toronto, Councillor Mike Layton, MPP Jessica Bell, who I've all worked with over these past 10 years, trying to make this a better city and advocating for a better city all around. I want us all to imagine a better city with safe roads, with protected bike lanes. Imagine a city that, instead of treating the homeless as criminals and trespassers, treats them with empathy and care and gets them the help and support that they need. And that's the city that I want to build. I want to build healthy neighborhoods together. Thank you.
Thanks, we're going to hop into those questions. How have you signed onto, or will you sign onto the No Developer Money Pledge?
Thank you for the question. I think I may have been one of the very first signers of the No Developer Money Pledge. I see developers as being a stakeholder in building housing here in the city. However, I want residents to feel very confident that I'm making decisions in their best interests.
Do you think the city has a role in supporting harm reduction organizations and addressing homelessness in encampments? If so, what? Will you commit to working with the homeless and underhoused themselves, stopping encampment evictions, not spending public funding on private security, or restoring funding for shelters?
Yeah, so we're definitely talking about two different issues there. On the opioid pandemic, I support a safe consumption and safe supply, and I will push for those things with Toronto Public Health. We are in an overdose crisis, and we need that safe supply urgently. No more homeless deaths. It is terrible, the mounting amount of homeless deaths that we are facing month after month. I mean, there's a homeless memorial, and it just continues to grow, and we must address it. On encampments, we are in a shelter and housing crisis. We must address it urgently. There are multiple overlapping issues that lead to folks being in encampments, but they are expressing their human right to housing, and we must house them. I was frankly surprised when Mayor Tory didn't support asking the federal government to expropriate hotels to provide more safe spaces for people. And, I will not be seeking endorsement from Mayor Tory, and I'm going to challenge him on this. We must get funding and resources to house everyone.
Will you commit to working towards getting the city to use its available powers and resources to take the lead in protecting tenants from rent evictions, challenge the province of Ontario on laws that incentivize the eviction of tenants, and double its investment in the multi-unit residential acquisition program?
Yeah, so last year I experienced a rent eviction with my family, and in the middle of an affordable housing crisis, I had to find a new place to rent with my family of 4. I got lucky, but there are some who have not, who have slipped through the cracks now. So we have to make sure we strengthen the rent safe program so that we can keep people in their houses, where they're living. We have to help tenants to organize. I find when tenants organize, we have the best outcomes. So I would love to see something like a mandatory tenant committee in every single building. We have to keep people in their houses, first of all, because it exacerbates the housing crisis as people get rent evicted. And the Mura program is a great success, to the point where it is oversubscribed. I think it's been very successful, and I would support that being increased, and I would love to see the Kensington Market Land Trust reapply for that.
Do you commit to ensuring that development on city-owned land is in partnership with nonprofits?
Absolutely. I mean, the profit motive is out when you are working with a nonprofit. This is probably the best case scenario for affordable housing. And I would love to work with the Kensington Market Land Trust to help them to get funded and build things that are by the community and for the community. That's the best case scenario.
Will you commit to making the Kensington Market Heritage Conservation designation a priority, directing staff to complete it in the first quarter?
Yeah, this study has taken a very long time, and it needs to come to a conclusion. I mean, if it's more staff that's needed, more resources, let's get it there so we can get it done. We need to put forth our vision for Kensington Market so that, and entrench that before somebody else puts their vision in. Because I've seen what happens in Ontario Place. When you don't present your vision, somebody else will present a vision.
Will you commit to making the Kensington Market Cultural District designation a priority, directing staff to complete it immediately following the implementation of CDD?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's a couple of cultural district designations work kind of underway. If any community deserves it, Kensington Market is absolutely at the top of that list. The market is one of the oldest and most culturally diverse areas in Toronto and is extremely special. And if anybody deserves that CDD, it is Kensington Market. Its presence of Kensington Market enriches all those who live, work, and play here in Kensington Market. It is a special place, and we must preserve it for future generations to enjoy.
Will you fully commit to supporting the climate emergency motion passed by Toronto City Council in October 2019?
Yeah, so what I tell people is we have to fight climate change like we have completely run out of time. What that emergency motion is, it's kind of a plan for a plan. So it's a very aspirational plan, but it needs a more detailed plan now, and it needs resources. And I think here also the mayor needs to be challenged on this. I have organized to challenge mayors in the past, fought the mayor back in 2010 when they were trying to land fly jets at the island airport. And you can trust me to challenge the mayor to bring resources to bear so that we can fight the climate emergency immediately.
Will you fully support funding and staffing of Transform TO to ensure we meet our climate goals for 2025 and 2030?
Absolutely. So it's about resources again, like I just mentioned. Transform TO has been transformative for the city, and we should look to organize staff more efficiently to roll out the recommendations. And to do this, we have to get more funding. We will need probably new revenue tools for this, and I support looking for those revenue tools so that we can effectively fight climate change, the crisis of our time.
Will you champion a green economy based on equity and inclusion for all our communities?
Absolutely. So we can't go back to business as normal for the environment or for the economy. The new green economy has to be more inclusive and include those who've been left out of the carbon economy. And the transition to green resources must be just and include economic reconciliation with Indigenous communities.
Those are all of our questions.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
If there's anything, thank you so much. I think we have Robin up next.
Good evening. Hi, everybody. My name is Robin Buxton Potts, or Robin, or RBP, as my friends call me. I'm here today to let you know that I am running to be your next city councillor here in Ward 11, University Rosedale. When Mike Layton announced that he wasn't running, I had this sinking feeling where I realized that all three of the downtown councillors were going to be brand new, leaving decades of experienced institutional knowledge, and coming out of the last 3 years, we need people with experience who can get on the ground and start work right away. We've done too much work in these communities for things to get left. I have been working in this community for over a decade. I love cities. I love how we work together. I worked with Adam Vaughn and Joe Cressy when they represented your communities. I worked with Christia Freeland. Most recently, I worked as Kristen Wong-Tam's chief of staff, and I'm recently appointed the interim city councillor in Toronto Centre. I have the experience to get started right away. I've lived in this city my whole life. I'm a renter, I'm a queer person. I have so much on the ground experience talking to people, and I truly, truly love this city and hope to have the opportunity to represent you.
We'll hop into questions. Have you signed on to, or will you sign on to the No Developer Money Pledge?
I haven't, partially because I'm not pro-development, but I'm not anti-development. We are in the midst of a housing crisis and they are a stakeholder, and I don't think that it's fair to demonize one group of people over the others. I will say that in my work with all of the city councillors that I've worked for, we had incredibly strong protocols about how we worked with developers. They were transparent. We required pre-application meetings. We required very rigorous site plan application and construction management programs. We can't not work with developers. We don't have that option, but we can be very creative in how we work with them to get the best deals out of the developments that are coming that respect communities, that respect height densities, that respect where garbage is going in and out. These are things that we have control over, and having good working relationships with the people that build those is one way to do that. I would also say that creatively you can do some cool things. This summer on Parliament Street, Kristen Wong-Tam and I worked with Center Court Developments to put in what's called the Cabbagetown Parkscape. And if you spend any time on Parliament Street this summer, you will have seen these incredible green outputs into the street. It created this incredible green space, traffic calming, and it was done because we were able to connect the developers to the local BIA to say, this is what city building looks like. Let's work together to do it in ways that promote climate, that promote safe streets, and build a truly wonderful city.
Do you think the city has a role in supporting harm reduction organizations and addressing homelessness and encampments? If so, what? Will you commit to working with the homeless and underhoused themselves, stopping encampment evictions, not spending public funding on private security, or restoring funding for shelters?
Yes, the city has a vital role, and it's one that we've advocated for far too long. Over the last 3 years, as the pandemic raged and people moved into the parks, that was the key issue. I had weekly meetings with city staff, my council colleagues, trying to urge them to say, this is critical that we help bring people inside. That was the genesis of the shelter hotel program, but we saw that that didn't work. And so I spent time speaking with people living in the encampments, asking them what kind of supports they needed to get inside to take culturally sensitive, appropriate, supportive housing and really be supported. One of the things that I think we hear a lot is that housing is a problem for all 3 levels of government. And that's true, but the city, we have no one else to pass the buck to. So we need to get creative about how we are helping people. So one of the ways that Kristen and I did that with the support of Mayor Tory and the medical officer of health was to start something called the mental health office through Toronto Public Health. We recognized that there were significant gaps of services. People who need treatment beds are going into our shelters. People come out of treatment centers and they have nowhere to go. And so coordinating through the city programs in a way that is economically effective, but also genuinely ethical and caring, we can help create a system to give people care while we fight continuously to get the provincial government to give us the support we need.
Will you commit to working towards getting the city to use its available powers and resources to take the lead in protecting tenants from rent evictions, challenge the province of Ontario in laws that incentivize the eviction of tenants, and double its investment in the multi-unit residential acquisition program?
Yes, absolutely. This is another area where it's not acceptable for us to say this is the provincial government's responsibility. As a city, we need to be creative about how we're helping keep people housed. One of the prongs of the housing crisis is to keep people in the homes that they already have. One of the programs at the city that I would like to see expanded further is the rent bank. Through the work that I did at the end of the summer, we managed to get the rent bank program expanded and also turned what had been a loan program into a grant program. So that when people were in crisis and they needed 1 month's rent just to get themselves through, they weren't taking on additional debt. We know that helping people stay in their homes, even 1 month at a time, really helps with the housing crisis. There are other things that we can do when we're working with developers. If they're going to come and tear down a rental building for profit, we need to strengthen our bylaws that require them to replace those units and provide housing for the people that they are displacing within the community that is appropriate, the same size, and that they are given first right of return when that building is finalized. Those are powers that the city has to put in now. And again, we need to do everything we can and be creative while we wait for a province that has given no indication that they care about renters.
Do you commit to ensuring that development on city-owned land is in partnership with nonprofits?
Yeah, not only do I commit to it, I've done it. This year we helped build 5,000 new units with Municipal. I've worked directly with Dixon Hall, Homes First, Wood Green, on finding ways of building deeply affordable, supportive housing in new developments. This is work that we need to continue to do. It's not going to solve the whole housing crisis, but coming at it in multi-different ways is a big one.
Will you commit to making the Kensington Market Heritage Conservation Designation a priority, directing staff to complete it in the first quarter?
I will admit that when I saw this question, I groaned because I worked for Joe Cressy in 2015 when we made this motion, and I was shocked to hear that it had not been completed yet. So yes, as your next city councillor, that would be a huge priority. It was a priority back then. I'd like to understand why it hasn't been done yet, but it's really critical that we do it while the other development pressures around Kensington Market are happening. We know that there is a state of good repair work happening along Kensington Market. The roads are going to be redone, making sure that the cultural and physical heritage of the Kensington Market is protected and as part of a holistic plan has to be top of mind. And with that state of good repair work happening at the beginning of the year, making sure that the Heritage Culture District is completed by then is critical.
Will you commit to making the Kensington Market Cultural District designation a priority, directing staff to complete it immediately following the implementation of CDD?
Yes, so the genesis of the Cultural District program was actually work that I did with Kristen to help protect the Church and Wellesley Village. We saw that expanded to Little Jamaica, and it is absolutely critical that it comes to Kensington Market. Our current heritage laws only allow protection of built form. It does not speak to the incredible history and culture of a location, and making sure that we can quantify that, support small businesses that are having skyrocketing rents from, outside developments. These are so important to protect our neighborhood, and Kensington Market would definitely be top of my list.
Will you fully commit to supporting the climate emergency motion passed by Toronto City Council in October 2019?
Yes, and I think we have to do it again. That motion was passed right before the pandemic hit. And we saw what happens when the city actually declares an emergency, and it does not look like what we've done for climate change. We have to treat this with the urgency with which it deserves. We have seen in Toronto the huge snowstorms last winter that took weeks to clear. We have flooding every summer. The cost of not doing it is so much higher than the cost of doing something now. I want to see this emergency treated like an emergency.
Will you fully support funding and staffing of Transform TO to ensure we meet our climate goals for 2025 and 2030?
Yes, and if you haven't read the Transform TO plan, I encourage you to. It is incredibly ambitious, and I'm a huge supporter of it. What it hasn't been is prioritized adequately. If you look at our budgets over the last 2 years, you will not find a line item on Transform TO. There's a saying, like, show me your budget and I'll show you what you care about. The city does not care about funding this plan, and it has to. It needs to have transparent, clear budget lines that are tied to actual metrics. Otherwise, we will not be able to meet our targets of net zero by 2050.
Thank you so much. That's all of our questions and your time is up. I know it's been a long night. We just have one more, and then you can have your separate conversations. I want to thank everyone here for holding on. I know it can get a little bit dry, but it's important for us to know where our candidates stand.
Thank you all for being here. I feel at home. For those who don't know, my name is Kawthra. For those who know me better, I'm a bass player, and I used to jam every Monday night at the Grossland Tavern when I was in my university years. I also started a business in Kensington Market about 20 years ago. Like I said, my name is Kawthra. I have been doing work in the community since I was in my early 20s. I started a non-profit organization when I was 23. I helped newcomers get introduced into their communities. I worked with the Canadian Youth Business Foundation to help young people start their own business, become entrepreneurs with mentoring and financing. I attended former Ryerson University. Most importantly, I am your neighbor. I live, work, and play in Ward 11. And as I said, I ran a business that started almost 20 years ago down the road in Kensington Market. Nowadays, I am the founder and principal of a home building company that specializes in alternative housing, such as laneway houses and garden suites. I also run a food manufacturing business that started almost 20 years ago in Kensington Market. We had to move because rents were getting too high, but we were still in Toronto. I am not here chasing a job because I didn't get elected in the last election. We were essentially being priced out and chased out of the city that we loved by the housing crisis. Fortunately and unfortunately, the pandemic hit and WestJet canceled our flights. So we decided to stay, primarily because our family is here, because we love our family, and because we also love Toronto. Now I have a son named Jack. He just turned 1 last weekend, and I want to give him the opportunity to grow in the city. I want to give him the privilege of growing in Toronto, and I want to leave him a city where he can raise his own family and still have a better sense of community, a better sense of safety. That's why I decided to run. I've always said I'm not a conservative, I'm not a liberal, I am not a politician. I am a business-oriented person with a track record, has experience, the drive, the ambition, the determination to steer this city back into the right direction. I don't think we need another career politician that is in love with the fame or the perks or the power. I think we need leaders that are in love with the community, with the environment, with justice and the humanities. It's a pleasure knowing you. I hope I get to speak to each one of you by the end of the night before I go home. I hope you give me the opportunity to work for you the next October 24th.
Thanks, Ansel. I'm going to hop into some of the questions now, if that's okay with you. Have you signed on to, or will you sign on to the no developer money pledge?
100% yes. You can't tell me that you're not going to take someone's money without being somewhat owing a favor to someone, to them in the future. Plain and simple.
Do you think the city has a role in supporting harm reduction organizations and addressing homelessness in encampments? And if so, what? Will you commit to working with the homeless and underhoused themselves, stopping encampment evictions, not spending public funding on private security, or restoring funding for shelters?
I'm lucky she went home, but my wife's uncle used to live in an encampment, and he was addicted to drugs, and was a victim of the drug crisis in Toronto. He had an accident in COVID, and now he needs attention 24 hours a day. So it's very close to my heart. I do think that encampments are a problem, but they are a symptom of a bigger problem. I want to invest in communities. I want to invest in rehabilitation programs as opposed to injection sites. I want to invest in communities. That's where my primary vision is. I do not. I definitely don't want to spend any of the public funds on private security, and shelters should be operating 24 hours a day. We need more of them. We need to house these people, and we don't just need to give them temporary shelter, but we need to give them the opportunity to get themselves on their feet and provide them with programs that are going to eventually get them set on the right track.
Will you commit to working towards getting the city to use its available powers and resources to take the lead in protecting tenants from evictions? Challenge the province of Ontario on laws that incentivize the eviction of tenants, and double its investment in a multi-unit residential acquisition program?
It's a resounding yes. That should be a question for Jessica Bell that I saw her here just earlier on, because I think the landlord and tenant board should be doing their job, and they're definitely not doing it. I will go farther than that. I'll say that landlords, commercial landlords, shouldn't be able to invest in making their buildings prettier just for the sake of being able to increase rents for more than the maximum amount every year. So yes, and I'll go farther than that.
Do you commit to ensuring that development on city-owned land is in partnership with nonprofits?
I want developers to work directly with the city as opposed to certain non-for-profits. You guys know what happened with the WE scandal. some non-for-profits are not really non-for-profits.
Will you commit to making the Kensington Market Heritage Conservation designation a priority, directing staff to complete it in the first quarter?
Yes, Kensington Market is a gem of Toronto. It should be preserved culturally and heritagely. I can't speak as to the timeline. I promise you guys I will make it a priority on day one, but things might take longer than first quarter. But it'll be number one.
Will you commit to making the Kensington Market Cultural District designation a priority, directing staff to complete it immediately following implementation of CDDs?
Likewise, absolutely.
Will you fully commit to supporting the climate emergency motion passed by Toronto City Council on October 2019?
Yes, I want to go farther, and I don't want it to be a promise, but I will do it if I have to go to the private sector. I want to plant more trees. I want to do more and more for the environment. We need a more green city. Yes. I mean, sorry, I'm passionate about it, and I can go on. I can talk about it for days.
Will you fully support funding and staffing of Transform TO to ensure we meet our climate goals for 2025 and 2030?
Oh, yes.
Will you champion a green economy based on equity and inclusion for all of our communities?
100%. Yes.
Those are all of our questions. Is there anything else you'd like to add?
No, go vote. It doesn't matter who you vote for. I saw a hand. I'll be right there. Happy to talk to you.
Thank you so much, everyone. I just want to point out that there are some beverages and snacks over here if you've been sitting for a while and you want to bring your blood sugar back up. And we've got a little bit of time for you to go around and meet your candidates. I also want to point out that we do have a trustee candidate here as well. You want to just stand up and wave quickly so that people can identify her. She doesn't have a table, but she'll have some materials and can answer any questions that you have. Thank you so much for being here.